use.
final championship series.
Recycling.
Plastic.
Just started.
No, Thursday.
This is all. That's like they really drag
Right.
this out.
It's all
What's that?
cycle
I'll
to
watch
start
some of
with,
it.
and that's why it's
I
so
watched,
flimsy.
I watched the Knicks and the I tell you, that Pacer team, man,
They got hot at the right time.
and they play tough defense.
Yeah, but that thing like the birds.
I don't have any leaves on my tree.
Or they have the.
A windmill.
It's killing, yeah, west, it's killing eagles. Because they're black, well, other birds too, but they're.
Yeah, mine go
But
on
even in the
winter.
water, they said they
Oh,
the
Yep.
fish and
Because of the
stuff in the
vibration.
water, and then they rust, and,
Yeah.
they're ruined,
And I'm
they don't
sure
last very long in the water, in the ocean water.
Total disaster.
I have no idea.
What you
You'd
talking
think
about?
they'd have gotten
The windmills,
And China's loving.
Maybe they did.
yeah, they are for the earth,
Mhm.
in
Stuck 'em
the
up.
ocean,
Oh, in the ocean, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know, but even on land,
You want me to-
birds, anything flying in that path.
One of those extra.
Hello? You don't hear any audio yet? But he doesn't hear it on.
Hello?
We hear you, Nikki.
No?
God. Watch out, Brian's touching
Ow.
Does anybody know a
Did anybody
paramedic?
hear that?
Yeah, it's working. According to this, it's working. Hello, hello? No?
Nothing?
Are you sure you don't have yours muted?
Notice that he wants to print out real fast.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
He's got it.
Try
Is it
again?
working now?
oh,
Okay. I do declare.
It's kind of low.
It's low.
Yeah.
We had that problem talk into the mic. Let me see if I can put the mask on.
Hello, 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 hello. Now you're starting to reverberate. Right there? That sounds okay.
that sounds all right, yeah. Anything louder starts to buzz there.
Yeah.
Which one is he? I know they turned his down.
Well, it says it right on there.
I know, but I can't see it. There is no sticker.
Well, I'm 3, so Nikki's probably 4, Don's probably 5.
Mike, yeah, 5 is down. Okay, so I'm gonna turn these up to
The reason that they were showing
Uh-oh.
it was because down in Georgia, because the price of lumber was so down, that guys are clearing out all their
Hello?
lumber.
Hello?
And they're putting it in solar fields.
I will try it.
They're
How
really
is it?
dying down there.
A little better?
I could see homes having it, you know, if you're out in the sticks,
I'm gonna
Yeah,
turn
it
you
would-
put it on
it-
your roof
it
and
would
you've
help a
got
little
it,
bit. It
you
would help a
know,
little bit.
yeah.
Yes, you're down. Hello, hello.
Grid,
Right.
whatever,
Hello,
in
hello.
Alaska,
Oh,
or-
even then, you still have to have, because if it gets cloudy.
yeah, it's
Is that
not
better?
charging.
It's not charging.
Well, they're becoming more,
Well, you better
they're
have
becoming more efficient.
a wood stove
Yeah, but the-
to heat the house.
they're just, right now, they're with this massive ones. I was out in Las Vegas. We drove out to the dam.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's just thousands of acres of them. They're just, it's just. and
Where's
you don't
my,
see any wildlife.
oh, there it is.
They can't live around
You
that.
can't, you don't see
But
any.
what does that do to people? You can say the high tension wires, the radiation. You know, if your house is right there, then it's not safe.
It's fun when
Wow, I'm so happy
you're.
about
For 5 months, we'll be talking about.
Okay.
Some kind of.
It's recording well, everything's good.
Yeah.
Good, they wouldn't live.
Is Matt, what time did he say he was gonna come?
He said he was gonna be here.
Okay,
Maybe something's held him up or, I'm not sure.
okay.
You can feel it.
Well, what do we got? We'll start anyway, or should we wait a
But that's,
Well, if I didn't
What
have
was
to,
he
I
gonna
wouldn't.
speak
So,
to?
yeah.
Can you go through any of it, or can we go through some of this stuff before we wait
Before,
for?
yeah. Oh, yeah, he doesn't have any of this.
Okay, good. All right. Everybody ready? Council all ready? No, because we'll have it for, I wanted everybody to, we can always, if he has something. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025 at 7:04 p.m. Next order of business is pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Okay, roll call.
Councilman Nielsen?
Here.
Councilwoman Kanzoni?
Here.
Councilwoman Allen?
Here.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Here.
Councilman Whedon?
Present.
Okay, all council present, along with our fiscal officer, Nicole Sell, our law director, John Montello, our fiscal clerk, Melissa Sangrick, and our finance council is here, Matt Stawinski. So we have everybody here, plus some residents in the audience. And welcome to any residents that are watching the live stream this evening. Okay. Any comments related to the agenda items? Okay. Matt, do you need a few minutes, or?
No, I don't think so. You have the plan?
You must be, you must be feeling pretty good. You ran in, all the way from home?
I did. Okay, not a problem.
Matt, if you just want to introduce,
Sure,
just give it for the record.
Sure, most certainly. Good evening all. Matt Stuzinski. I serve as the village's municipal advisor. Good to see you all, and those people watching at home. My purpose of being here this evening is at the request of the fiscal officer, Nicole Sell, who indicated to me some concerns about balances and capital projects that are forthcoming, some potential capital projects that the council may be considering in the future. I'm going to harken back to a conversation we had prior where we talked about a ordinance, and the mayor suggested we chat about this again before council. It would come before council's consideration at a future meeting. But it's a piece of legislation that councils often consider. It's called a declaration of intent to reimburse. And we've spoken about this before, and it really is a flexible ordinance designed to give the administration and council the luxury or the flexibility of spending money today, but possibly reimbursing themselves with debt proceeds in the future. As an example, and we're using, Director Sell and myself, we're using the street improvements this year as an example. If the village were to just say hypothetically, because of a grant that it might receive by way of a reimbursement, that the village has to come out of pocket for monies that it intends to get reimbursed either by federal, state, or county, that the village has to come out of pocket, but we're waiting for the grant proceeds to come in. We come out of pocket in May or June as an example, and sometime later this year, we still don't have grant proceeds reimbursing us, and let's say again, use $300,000 as an example. If we have in place the declaration of intent to reimburse ourselves, you could come out of pocket in June for $300,000, still waiting for the grant monies to come in at, let's say, in 2026, but you could reimburse yourself with note proceeds either in a separate note ordinance and separate note financing, or we could combine it with the notes that are coming due later this year, which would be optimal. We don't want to necessarily issue debt solely for a small financing that we intend to get reimbursed for, but we could include it in a financing, ultimately with the goal of, when the grant proceeds come in, we reimburse ourselves with those grant proceeds, we use those proceeds to pay off the debt. And that then provides you with the luxury of not ending up at the year end with having cash out of pocket, no grant proceeds in hand, and a drawn down fund balance when you're scrambling to fund operations, payroll, things of that nature. So it really is an ordinance that provides you with the luxury of being able to reimburse yourself. You never have to use it. And even if you do, when this piece of legislation goes before council, again, what happens after that ordinance is passed is, if you should identify a project that you want the fiscal officer to put on file, it's merely putting a form on file in the fiscal officer's office that says, we are putting this on file with the intent to possibly reimburse ourselves with debt proceeds in the future. Before that legislation, I'm suggesting that council do this. I've typically made this recommendation to almost every community that contemplates a financing in which it might get grant proceeds in the future, or for whatever reason is concerned about future cash flow, future balances, and may want to reimburse itself with debt proceeds. Once again, you do not have to go forward with the debt offering. It's just a backup plan that you have in place to allow you to do so. Now, should you not choose to do that and have this declaration of legislation put in place and don't have the form on file, you do not have the luxury of going back in time and reimbursing yourself with debt proceeds or debt for monies that you came out of pocket for in June. They're gone. You have no luxury of doing that without having this ordinance in effect. That's federal tax law. But the federal tax law does provide you the luxury, flexibility. If you put the ordinance in place, you identify a project, put the form on file, you can do so. So it really is an ordinance that I think gives you, council, the flexibility, and you get to watch as the course of the year unfolds in terms of how funds come in, how expenses are incurred, whether or not the grant proceeds are coming in as expected, and depending on the construction season as well, whether or not you'll get to all those projects this year or next year. So with that, I'll stop and see if there's any questions, but that was my primary purpose of coming this evening, along with chatting about a capital project in particular. I believe that came up or surfaced in a prior council meeting. But let me stop there and see if there's any questions about declaration of intent to reimburse ordinance.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Stosinski. If we did put this on file, is that only good for 2025? How long is it good for?
The omnibus ordinance stays in place forever.
Okay.
The forms are submitted, put in the fiscal officer's file. It's in place until council decides not to, or to rescind it. But I've never seen anyone rescind it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Are there any projects that are restricted?
Well, as is always the case, it has to have a 5-year useful life. For any debt offering, for any capital project to be eligible for debt, it must have a 5-year useful life. So that would be the only restriction that we'd have. And we use the Ohio Revised Code as our guideline for determining that. If there is something that isn't specifically identified in the Ohio Revised Code, keep in mind that's 40-some years old now, that section. I mean, computers weren't even a thought when that section was written. So, computers large computers at that point in time had 5-year useful lives, but not today's personal computers. So something like that, we'd have to measure whether or not that's really a legitimate 5-year useful life, because the Revised Code doesn't list every possible capital project that you could think of. So we have to do some interpolation at times as to whether or not it's eligible, and we look to legal counsel. And the legal counsel will oftentimes look to an expert like the engineer, if it's a road or street or something like that, to give an opinion that it qualifies.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
When we issue debt, Matt, where do those rates come from? Is that from the Ohio IMAP rates, or?
So the process, and this will be I can go down a deep dive on this, but I'm going to give it a high level. Mm-hmm. The rates you're speaking of in terms of how they're established, the interest rate on the notes, it's a market rate, meaning when we go to sell those notes, we hire an underwriter. That underwriter has been Stifel. Okay, Stifel has in the top 10 nationally of underwriters. They do a great job of canvassing the institutional investors that buy these notes. You'd be surprised, it's not as big of a universe as you might think. It's not like everyone who buys a Vanguard fund or Fidelity or Federated. There's less than 10 typically buyers, institutional buyers of these notes, unless somebody has what I'll refer to as a secret sauce, okay, that they have a specific outside the institutional vendor that they may know of. Stiefel sometimes finds those. There's corporate buyers that are clients of the Stiefel that will buy these notes. We go out, the institutional side, so think of it as a fulcrum. We're the issuer on one side of the seesaw, the investor, Stiefel and the investors on the other side. We are trying to get the lowest interest rate. Stiefel's trying to get the highest interest rate for their investor. We try to find a level or an equilibrium between those two. My job is to get you the lowest interest rate. Stiefel's job is to get their investors the highest. We look to the marketplace of comparable notes that have been priced in the marketplace and benchmarks that set those rates. Typically, we price off a spread to what's called the MIG-1, or the Moody's Investment Grade, highest rated paper, and wherever that's trading on a given day, we look to get a spread or basis points above that. You know, that is the highest rated. The OMAP program that you refer to is a program that we apply to get us the highest rated Standard & Poor's short-term rating. That helps us enter the market because the village of Walton Hills, on a standalone basis, doesn't match up with a AAA like a Beechwood or a Strongsville. So they created this program to help smaller entities like the village of Walton Hills access the market. It's called the Ohio Market Access Program for a reason. It's designed to help folks like you apply for a rating, and think of it much like bond insurance. You've all heard of municipal bond insurance. This is credit enhancement or insurance for the benefit of the investor, okay, that we purchase in order to make our notes more attractive to them. That should lower the yield that we have to pay, and it gives them confidence that in exchange for that lower yield, there's certainty of repayment of those notes. I hope that helps. But it's an equilibrium, and that's always not a perfect equilibrium.
Right.
Sometimes there's mismatches in depending on the nature of the marketplace or the credit quality of the note, whether or not the village had, or in this situation, if the village had an underlying rating, which it doesn't, which is one of the reasons we buy that, or apply for that credit enhancement through the OMAP, because without it, we would pay thousands of dollars more in interest had we not been eligible for that program. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I know if you give me the runway, I will talk about this too long, okay? So don't give me the runway.
Just I know one of Nikki's concerns, and when her and Matt talked, was, you know, we have legislation here for the $306,000, and $306,270 for street projects and road repairs. And also, which is good news, not that, but I mean, that's good news that we're doing it. It just so happened it came at a good time. I just got an email that says, what came earlier, but I just picked it off. Your request for financial assistance from the Ohio Public Works Commission Infrastructure Program has been approved. Project agreements will be released on or about 7/1/25, assuming budget authority is in place. Agreements will be mailed. And what that is for the project of Ryan Drive and Sealy Circle. So it's just basically giving us a briefing. It's public record though. It's from Ohio Public Works Commission, but they'll give us the officials. So there is that other road project. I couldn't remember exactly the cost of that. I think it was like, wasn't it $400 and something thousand?
It went up,
It
man.
went up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a total depth
It's a
repair.
total.
Yes, it was over 600.
Yeah, now it's at 600 or what, yeah.
640.
So there is, I guess, somebody was looking out for us to throw that out. I'm just letting you know, when we get, it looks like we're gonna receive something 7/1, and I'll talk to Joe about that. But they did send us this letter today. So that's great news.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm gonna cast a wide net, I think. According to this chart that Nicole gave us, we have beginning unencumbered fund balance, including all the funds, a little over 2.3 million. Unencumbered balance is 1.886 million, okay, unencumbered. For $300,000, what's your advice on just paying the $300,000? And I know, and I agree with your assessment of drawing this, this legislation. That would take us down to a little over $1.5 million unencumbered cash. With that kind of money, do we need to pay interest on a loan? Or I could understand next year with Ryan and Kaylee Circle, that's a lot more than this. I'm just wondering what your expertise in
Mr. Mayor.
financing, should we really incur the interest cost of that, or bite the bullet and pay that down this year?
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just make a comment that the schedule that you're looking at is our tax budget for next year.
Oh, I thought it was
No,
current, oh,
that's our
okay.
tax budget for next year. If you look at the first line item, the general fund, the beginning estimated fund balance is 1.3 million, ending 1,041,000. That would be for the general fund.
That's in the general fund.
Yes, overall, the bottom number would be the estimated unencumbered balance, should we not, but these are all restricted funds.
Okay, I get it. So we have to take it from the general and move it into capital.
Matt's gonna speak to that
Yeah,
next.
that
We
is-
actually took it, remember, we discussed taking it right out of the general fund and paying it?
You have your choice. You can take it out of the general fund, transfer it to capital, you can pay for it directly out of the general fund. You have the choice of that. One requires a transfer, the other doesn't. Either way, you end up in
Okay.
the same place, with 300,000 less. It is hard for me to stand here and tell you what your priorities are, right? I mean, you know whether or not these streets, far better than I do, are in need of repair. The question is always whether or not that needs to be done now to forestall additional maintenance costs that you might have to, we'll call it expend anyway, to keep those roads passable, drivable. We're very sensitive to drawing down the fund balance, which is why I'm suggesting the declaration of intent be put in place. So if, over the course of the year, things don't pan out as we hope as far as income tax, or we have some unforeseen emergency on the expense side, that we have the wherewithal to get you back the $300,000. Now, again, I never like to come in and talk about issuing more debt. And to the extent we don't have to, because other things improve by way of income tax, or expenses are lower than we hope, or lower than we expect, I can stand here and comfortably say, you don't need to. But no different than your personal finances, there's a point in time at which you can say, I can only spend down our reserves so much before we're uncomfortable with being prepared for a future unknown. Now, typically, what we see in Ohio, and I'll go back to just some general benchmarks. The national GFOA uses the general fund as an example and says 2 months operating, okay, as a minimum. Minimum, and I stress that, minimum. In Ohio, if you want to be if you're a rated credit, meaning you have a AAA, AA, single A, you are typically north of 40% fund balance, okay? Typically 40 in that range. Now, that doesn't mean, again, many times that is done and recorded because those communities have an outstanding bond rating, and they're trying to maintain that bond rating, which means they have to be comparable with other communities in Ohio in terms of their fund balance and their financial strength, as well as comparable to other, we'll call it, cities in other states. Our problem is we rely heavily on income tax, where, in Ohio, where other states rely on sales tax and property tax, which can be far more predictable and far more stable than income tax. Income tax is great when the economy's booming and people are getting raises and people are hiring, but it doesn't always last. And while we've had a good run with income tax does seem to be slowing down across the RETA communities over the first 4 or 5 months of this year. That's because a lot of people were getting raises. A lot of people over the course of the last 4 and 5 years through COVID periods where people were getting good increases. There was a lot of employment. People and the stimulus monies were helping employers to keep people employed. But it is slowing down. So can I sit here unequivocally say you spend $300,000, it's the best plan? I can't, because I can't predict what's going to happen between now and the end of the year.
Mhm.
But my hope is that things are stable through the course of this year and you won't have to issue debt. Keep in mind, what we like about these notes is that should things improve 12 months from now, we can pay it off. We're not stuck with the long-term interest rate. That is the beauty of what Ohio does have in its favor, is the ability to issue these short-term 1-year bands or less, and it gives you the flexibility to pivot in each year. And that's why when you say incur the interest, I get it, no one wants to do that, but we're not locking in for an extended period of time.
Okay.
We have the wherewithal to pay that off, and the good news is, while you're waiting to expend those dollars, you're earning a healthy interest earning on those dollars, which is offsetting some of the interest expense you're incurring.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Any other, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, good evening, Matt. Thank you for being here tonight. I have a couple questions. The first one, just wanted to clarify, more process related. We passed an ordinance with the intent to reimburse, and that's on the books until forever. Next group of council, mayor, whoever.
You can rescind it.
Okay. And then the form part, now is the form that's filed in the fiscal officer's office, is that for each individual project, or is that one form, one time?
Each individual project.
Each individual project.
Specify the project, specify an estimated dollar amount. And it doesn't mean you can't say road improvements, 10 streets, and list the streets. It's not by street. It can be generally by the improvements, generally speaking. Street improvements, 10 streets, you can list them, and you don't have to limit yourself to that. And then a dollar amount.
Okay, so here, we're gonna open up a new runway for you. So, and you may be getting ready to go here anyway, talking about the project like the Ryan and Kaylee project coming up next year, we have this happen a lot. This is not just that project. We have the combination sometimes of a reimbursable part from different sources, as well as the total expected expenditure on the village's part.
Sure.
What goes on the form? The entire amount, or just what you expect to be reimbursed from the other entities?
So what we've learned recently is we can't count on any monies from a grant. Because if the federal government pulls the plug on grants, it trickles down. So you put the full amount of the
Put
project.
your full amount. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. You don't
Short
want
runway.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And it doesn't lock you into anything. It just gives you the wherewithal to borrow that dollar amount. It's really a dollar amount of what you're expending, not what's on the form.
Okay.
Nikki, did you want to add any more to it? You're in favor of it too, correct?
Yes.
So, me, John, and Nikki talked, and of course, Nikki talked to Matt in depth about it. And what we said was, when Nikki said there, I talked to Matt. I guess you guys were, and Melissa was there too, at a auditors conference or what?
It's a luncheon where the auditor spoke, the
Right.
Municipal Finance Officers
Right.
Association.
Just recently, and So, Nikki said, well, we invited Matt to this COW meeting, and if council did want to move forward, I think you were going to, Matt, have that legislation prepared by Catherine along with John from
Correct.
Brady, correct?
We would look to the law director to give sign off that it's okay to proceed with having Bricker prepare that legislation. It's not a task, it's not a heavy lift, I should say.
Right.
To prepare that legislation, but it is, when you start talking about federal tax law and things, you wanna make sure that you're hitting all the right, sections of the code.
Right, and they do our notes,
Right.
too.
That's correct. That's correct.
And then, it would be a matter of putting it on, however you wanted to do it. We could put it on for first reading in the next council meeting, or pass it, or if there's still questions, we can bring it back in September, or whatever, because like Matt said, I mean, right now, how do we feel about the projects? Like Matt said, if the projects are already, you can't go backwards. Now, we have this legislation on for the 306, but was there some concern, Nikki, kind of
Mr. Mayor,
talk to
the
that?
reason that I contacted Matt was just because of all the projects with the uncertainty with this year. Again, like we said at the beginning, when we passed our budget, let's keep in constant review. And when Matt had suggested having that legislation on file, and it does not have to be for this particular project at this point, we can wait through the summer and see where we end up. I thought it might not be a bad idea for him to come and discuss it. I've consistently watched our general fund deplete, and I'm hoping that this year it will rebound a bit, but again, that's a wait and see.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
So, first of all, we would have to, regardless, we would have to have other legislation and move money in from the general fund to the capital improvement fund to pay for that $300,000, correct? Because the capital fund is falling short of that amount.
We are actually gonna pay it, as Matt had suggested, directly from our general fund at this time, and there is
Pay it from the general
legislation
fund?
in the packet. It's resolution, or ordinance number 2025-8. So we'll be paying that directly out of our general fund instead of transferring the funds to the capital fund.
Okay.
That would amend the budget to make that payment.
G.
The
letter G.
Second to the last page. There you go.
Right there, yeah.
I'm presuming, and I
Additional
apologize for interrupting, within the general fund, there's a line item for capital.
Yes.
It's not, right, so it's not uniquely it's not in an operational section, like
No,
the street
it's-
construction, maintenance, repair would have.
No, it's
streets.
800.
It says capital. Right,
Correct.
okay.
She's on top of it.
No
Things
doubt,
are- things are going- they're
that's a
on top
question,
of that.
that's a question project towards me and my inability to remember whether or not there's a line item for that, that's what I couldn't remember.
I knew they had the answer.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, one
Yeah.
more question, a technicality, and I think I know the answer of it, but I want you to confirm it for me. This money, $306,000, is for this project. We're signing this, or not signing, but we're voting on legislation tonight to sign an agreement with Specialized in that amount, okay? Does that letter cover this agreement or cover this project, since we're not doing it tonight, we're doing it in a couple of weeks? What comes first?
I
Do we
understand.
have to have that letter before we approve this?
So
Contract.
you make a good point. When you'd like to have that legislation passed, the form on file, when you enter into the contract. All right, now there is a clawback. I'm gonna check, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that I know the federal statute well enough, but typically you can claw back, and I wanna say it's 60 days, okay, to accommodate what you just described, which is entering into an agreement or a project and you don't have the declaration of intent asked yet, I will confirm that with Bricker and make sure that, and let you know, let Director Nicole know that, what that window of clawback is. I know there is a clawback.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to know, Matt, if we passed them both on the same night,
You're fine.
that would be fine.
Yeah, you're fine. It's what you just described as passing the contract before you have the resolution of intent in the form on file, where you just want to be very careful, so as to make sure you're allowing that. The whole thing is designed and it's so that you can't go back and finance something 5 years ago.
Right.
Right, it's designed to have some relative association with the passage and the filing of the form with the project that was entered into.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just for anyone that's curious, I wouldn't have an issue passing a declaration of intent at this June's meeting. It sounds like it's a safety net. It's not something we have to use, but it does sound, under the advisement of very knowledgeable people, it's something we should do.
Well, how does everybody else feel? Why don't we do this? Why don't we move forward with everybody in agreement? Matt and John getting the legislation, and Catherine, John looking at it, put some legislation together, and we can look at the legislation again. John won't be here, he'll be on vacation next week, he'll be out of town. Brother's wedding, right?
Brother-in-law, yeah.
Brother-in-law. And then if we have any questions, we can always talk to Matt, Nikki, and Melissa. You know, they'll get us the answers, and see how everybody feels, and then we can have it on for legislation on our meeting in June, as suggested. If everybody's comfortable, then it gives us time to look at it, dissect it, and if there's still questions, we can always do first reading, you know, or if everybody's comfortable. With it, so it's, is everybody good with that plan moving forward?
Yeah.
There's a couple more weeks too.
Yes.
And we
If they can get that done in 2 weeks, I mean, that's.
Oh, yeah, we can.
You can?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, yeah. I'll be looking at my emails while I'm on vacation, you know.
It won't be a problem.
Yeah, no biggie. Actually, I just have one question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Just, you know, you said the 5-year useful life, like some of this is like a spray sealer, you know, for certain, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna technically qualify, so we may not be able to get the whole 306 reimbursed from the, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here. If some of these services that have a 5-year life, but the asphalt resurfacing of Fern, Logan and Dunn is probably the biggest part of it, I would guess. That we could definitely, I was just thinking of it.
No, that's good. We don't, I mean, we wanna,
I know, you
we
raise a
wanna
good,
meet the criteria.
you raise a good point. If you're just doing painting or striping of a street, that typically doesn't qualify as a 5-year useful life. Filling a pothole, we know it doesn't have a 5-year useful life. Street resurfacing of a road generally will, and have a no doubt 5-year useful life and maybe longer. As I've said before, while roads don't last up here, they do so in Cincinnati a little bit longer, right?
Right.
And the revised code is designed to accommodate both. But it is important that the engineer, we look to the engineer to give us an opinion on the useful life of a sealant or something of that nature.
Right.
Everybody, yep, we get a recommendation letter
Yeah.
from him.
Because that spray sealer is supposed to extend the life of the road.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Right.
He'll know that. I'm sure he's
Yeah.
done plenty of those CVEs, so. Okay. But like you said, a big chunk of it anyways is the repaving of the street, so. Okay.
So
Is that-
deadline to get this in front of, back to village council, 2 weeks from yesterday, I'm sorry, 2 weeks from What's the deadline?
last
Just
Friday.
give me a deadline.
Well,
If
it
you
would
would-
be 2 weeks from
Call back,
today.
yes.
17.
But that would be for us too. It would
Oh.
be ideal if we could have it by next week.
If you
What's-
had a draft for us, we can always put a draft on here, this council would be able to look at it. Nikki, we would need that at the latest, 24 hours before, so it would be Monday morning or
Sure.
whatever.
I don't-
The latest,
again-
if you get it Friday, it's even better, Matt.
I'm speaking for legal counsel here, with Bricker,
Right.
but again, it's not a heavy lift. It's a fairly standard form in terms of the ordinance. So unless the law director has some nuanced alterations to it, I don't see it being a problem getting it by
Right.
Friday.
And then we would need, it give us then they would look at it, and then
Yeah.
then we would have, if it's looked at, we would have it for legislation in the
Okay.
next council meeting,
Okay,
which would be 2 weeks from today.
very good.
Good. Anything else, Matt, you want to share?
No, that's my marching orders for tonight, unless somebody has a question for me.
I know you guys have talked, it looks like we're seeing some of the TIF money
Yeah,
come in, and some of the other things that you talked with us earlier in the year.
yeah, sometimes it feels like it's not coming in fast enough, but that's.
Oh, no, it always feels that way.
Yeah, that
But-
always is the case. That always is the case, but it is moving forward.
Good. Any questions for Matt from the audience, or anybody watching the live stream or from council? Okay, Matt, you're always welcome to stay. I mean, it's a beautiful day.
I
Right when you
appreciate,
want.
as always, I appreciate the invite.
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
But just a quick comment, you can sit, but I just want to say thank you for being here tonight and presenting this tool. It's always better to have more tools in your tool chest, and if you need them, you pull them out. If you don't, it's better to have it in there. So thank you for presenting this tonight.
You're 100% welcome. I won't repeat your point. Your point is well taken. Thanks to go.
Thank you, Matt.
All right,
Thank
Thank you, Matt. Have a good week.
Take care. Kind of like an equity line. If you need it, you use it.
Right.
So, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I do have a question for Nicole. So this $300,000, you will not be, you're not planning on paying it out of the capital improvement fund itself? It's gonna come out of the general fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and
Which
is there a
in-
reason why?
Matt suggested, he said we can transfer money to the capital fund and then pay it. We currently don't have enough in our capital fund to pay it.
Okay,
He said, or just pay it from the general fund, so it alleviates the transfer
You
step
can-
and then the repayment.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now we'll move on to the legislation. We have item A, which is resolution 2025-21, a resolution adopting the tax budget of the village of Walton Hills, Ohio for the fiscal year 2026, directing the same may be submitted to the fiscal office of Cuyahoga County and declaring an emergency. Nikki, did you want to talk to that? I think we.
Mr. Mayor, that would be what we were referring to just before the last page of the packet, and my packet. The statement of fund activity, this is what we will send to the county. It's an estimated amount of income and expenditures for 2026. It's basically our first best guess at next year's budget. This most likely will change come September, once we start refining our numbers and getting some closer numbers in from this year. But this is basically what we send to the county for them to issue what is called the certificate, Schedule A certificate, which determines how much money we can actually spend next year.
Next year.
And as council knows, and just for any residents that are here and watching, this is something we do every year. So, we're required to do it every year.
Correct.
You may prolongate.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for Nikki. So Nikki, since I agree with you, this should be our best early guess for 2026 budget. Is there anything in this schedule that you want to highlight for us that we need to really zero in on? Anything that stand out?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe so. I basically went through and did an initial estimate on our receipts for next year. And again, that's gonna be dependent on what we actually end up with this year. As far as RETA income, that's a huge, and as far as that and property taxes, those won't change much year to year. The expenditures I went through, I estimated payroll, I estimated the best that I could without the department head's input as to, based on what we spent this year and based on where we are at in our budget. And I went through line by line, so these were basically the numbers that I came up with, and it's basically operating expenditures. As far as, I did not do a whole lot as far as moving into capital at this time.
Okay, so I do have one specific question on column, I guess that would be column 4 of the schedule, other sources, receipts, and specifically when we get down to the police pension line, what could be a other source of receipts for police pension?
Mr. Mayor, so
Yeah, go ahead.
when we do the police pension, when the employer portion is paid, that's the fund that it is taken out of. The other source would be the general fund. We actually transfer money every year to the police pension fund to cover those costs.
Okay, so the 100,000 would be, that's basically transfer.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on resolution 2025-21?
Mayor, just real quick,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to have a public hearing to allow anybody to ask any questions, so right before the council meeting, or it might actually appear right in the agenda of the council meeting. If anybody has, you're supposed to have a public hearing, so, although nobody ever comes up and asks anything, but somebody might.
Oh, no,
So-
yeah, we'll have that.
we'll just put it on the agenda to have a public.
And that will have that during the meeting.
Yeah, before the legislation. And we're gonna post it on the website and at the door,
Okay.
you know, like we normally post, wherever we post normal legislation. So if anybody were interested in attending, they could, or ask a question, they could.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
What item was that related to, Mr. Montello?
The tax budget,
Okay,
they just wanna, it's basically to show the residents what income we're receiving from our property taxes and what our budget is, and to show, you know, what we're receiving from and what, you know, what our budget is gonna be, and they can comment on it. And the county has to approve that we are gonna get this property tax in order for us to be able to spend it. So I don't know why they say a public hearing, they just want the public to be informed what's going on, so that is why there's a public hearing about it,
okay.
in case anybody should have a question.
Okay. So this will be on next COW meeting, also. We need further discussion too, so I'll have that resolution, 2025-21. We'll have that on there for next COW meeting. Any other questions, or do we want to move on, everybody ready to move on to item 2? Item B, I should say. Okay. Item B, a resolution 2025-22, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency. Another item we do every year. Nikki, did you have any comments on that you wanted to add? Or?
Mr. Mayor, this is a housekeeping item. We certify every year to the county. I don't have anything to add.
That's our current millage. Okay. Everybody good with that? And that will be on next week's also again. Okay. Any comments from anybody? Okay. We have item C, resolution 2025-23, a resolution requesting the county auditor to advance taxes from the proceeds of tax levies for the year 2025 collected in 2026 pursuant to section number 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code of the State of Ohio, and that's also declared an emergency. Nikki, do you have anything to add to that?
Mr. Mayor, this is also a yearly item, and it just allows the county, we get tax advance in January, February, and March, and then our final two payments in, I believe, July and August. So it allows them to advance the monies to us.
Any questions on that? Okay, that will also be on next week's COW meeting. Any questions from anybody that's here, or anybody watching the live stream? And if you do, we can always come back. Okay, we have item D, resolution 2025-24, a resolution authorizing the mayor and the fiscal officer of the village of Walton Hills to enter into a contract with Specialized Construction Incorporated for the 2025 asphalt maintenance program and declare an emergency. I know there was quite a bit of discussion also in the infrastructure committee about those items. Plus, we did talk about it last week. We did read a letter not last week, a couple weeks ago. So we did have a letter recommendation from Joe to move forward after he opened the bids. We did share that with everybody, and his recommendation was to go with Specialized. Anybody, John or Nikki, have anything to add to that? I know we talked about that quite a little bit with Matt, and Nikki answered some questions relating to that amount. It is $306,000. That will also be on next week's COW meeting for legislation in the council meeting. Everybody okay with that? Okay. We have, let's see, we have item E, resolution 2025-25, a resolution authorizing the mayor to apply to the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District for a potential grant for the funding of capital infrastructure improvement projects in the village of Walton Hills and declaring an emergency. We've had discussion on that.
Mayor Colograph?
Yes. go ahead.
If I may, so this resolution 2025, this, if we look on page 1 of that, all the way down by section 1, it says for the phase 3 study. So this is new. So we, at our last meeting, we approved the contract for the phase 2, the contractor to do the phase 2. Then this is brand new. Looking at petitioning or being going to the sewer district for the
Phase
next phase.
By passing this, you're authorizing us to apply for the grant.
Correct.
For me to apply for the grant.
Do you have any idea from Mr. Gelati, what areas? We know phase 1 and 2 is primarily Alexander Road. Any idea what phase 3 might encompass?
No, I'm not exactly sure. I thought we addressed that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought we talked about that. I thought it would be from Dunham Road, probably to Valley View, to the line.
Yeah, I thought it was that.
That's
And
phase 3.
I think, but that's not a problem.
Thank you.
I'll get a letter from Joe.
It is for 2026.
Correct.
Yes.
So, outlining that. Thank you. Any questions on 2025-25? We'll move on to item F. Ordinance 2025-7, an ordinance authorizing and directing the fiscal officer to certify delinquent property maintenance charges, trash collection assessment, and culvert repairs assessments to the county auditor for collection and declaring an emergency. Something we do every year, that too, correct, Nikki?
Correct.
Any, go ahead.
Nikki, what's the last day we can submit those? Do you know off the top of your head? Is it September?
This is due in September, but we wanted to pass it now because the first council meeting in September, we would need to have it done.
Gotcha.
For the for COW, I'm sorry.
Just curious, because I'll be cutting some grass with people this summer. I would imagine that maybe we could
And-
include it on there if we waited, but we're gonna cut it close, we're cutting close.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go
I
ahead.
did talk to the county on that, and they said we can certify those next year.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
I guess we could do more than once, I suppose. All right, thank you.
no problem, John, thank you for the input. Any questions related to that? That will also be on, next week's, meeting along with item E, and then on the council meeting. Okay. And we have item G, ordinance 2025-8, amending appropriations for current expenditures. Nikki, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Mr. Mayor, that would be amending the budget for the road work in resolution 2025-24 for payment on that project.
Any questions on that? Okay. Any questions from anybody watching the live stream or any residents? That will also be on, next COW meeting, so if anybody has any questions related to that, and Nikki, myself, or Melissa, and John, see if we can get them answered. That's what we have so far. Anybody have any other business?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to, I guess it's not really making a motion, but I'd like to make a request that we have the village engineer advise us what we could do for the safety, of our residents on Linda Lane. As it stands now, Linda Lane, we will not be able at all to get an ambulance down that road or a fire truck. I do know that's a private drive, but I feel there's still something that the village,
Where did you, who told you that they can't?
you could drive down it.
Who told you they can't get a fire truck down?
You could drive down it and see it would be impossible.
Okay.
There is a fire hydrant down there, but my concern was that if one house went up or there's one medical emergency,
Okay.
you know, so I'd just like to know.
My suggestion would be for, and I can be part of it, you to, we set up a meeting with the fire chief, and I'll tell you why. I've heard that before.
Okay,
So me and Mr. Kalman talked to the fire chief, Mr. Tapp, and he said those people are protected,
okay,
okay? If he felt that he could not safely protect those people, he would have come to us, okay? The problem is, he can't turn his trucks around
mm,
because of that private drive,
mm,
but he can get his trucks down there. And he's got all the equipment to do that, and if I'm not mistaken, we might, I think Rob has a letter from him,
mm.
or we can get a letter. So I think it's important, before anything, that statement is made, we
Okay.
actually hear it from the correct person, which is the fire chief, and the assistant fire chief, who have a responsibility to the communities they serve, or communities they don't serve, that if they feel that somebody isn't protected or can't be protected, to bring it to us. And nobody has, okay? He went down there, drove that, and he gave us his opinion on it. So my suggestion is, let me know, pick a day.
Sure.
We can meet with the fire chief. If
Absolutely.
anybody else, we can have a quorum, would like to do that, that's possible. The fire chief is at our disposal, or the assistant fire chief, no different than any department heads that are here. Okay? And so that's what I know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
I did have one other thing, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
If we could get corrected, the phone tree that we have here at the Village Hall, we still cannot get to Nicole or Melissa by their names being entered into the system. And it is bringing up past employees instead, which I'm not sure why. When I put in SEL for Nicole Sell, I get Katie Iaconis.
Mr. Mayor, I have contacted them. I'll try again about that. I don't know why it hasn't been changed. Somebody did say they did have a problem pushing number 6. I'm not sure what the exact number was, but I can contact them again.
I won't.
They don't want to change
Your number
it
is
to my
6,
name.
and then 2. I know how to get to you.
I won't comment on that,
So,
because Nikki knows. We've had conversations about that.
Well, I just found it today again when I called you, when I put in SAN for Melissa, and it still came up Katie Iaconis.
And I will not comment on my employees in public.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's easier.
Well, and those are questions that could be easily remedied or discussed outside of a public forum when it comes to how things are. Correct, Nikki? Okay, go ahead.
This is other business?
Yeah.
So,
Are
thank you.
you done, Jennifer?
Thank you. At our last information committee meeting, we said that we would like to have a meeting in June. I'm wondering if the rest of the committee would like to meet on the 17th. That would be before our council meeting. I was thinking originally next week, next Tuesday, but there's some to-do items that are left to be done from our agenda that I would like to get done before we meet next. So if that's okay, we can schedule it for 6 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
on the 17th.
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Mm-hmm. No problem.
Everybody's
I've scheduled it in.
Thank
better
you.
hope it rains.
Okay, so I'll bring out, I'll put out an agenda next week.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
I'm leaving for a few days tomorrow, so.
You are. You going anywhere good?
No. Nope.
Okay, let's review all I have. I don't have anything for other business. Oh, I do, but I think we'll save those for another day. So what we're gonna have next COW meeting is all these pieces of legislation. I will get a letter from Joe, or at least a little more information from what Mr. Councilman Whedon requested related to phase 3 of that project. What else did we have? We're gonna have a public meeting on one. I think otherwise we're pretty good shape.
And Mr. Mayor, the letter from Joe possibly about the sealer, useful life?
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Okay.
we'll have them look at what items we're looking at that are on in that legislation, and make sure that they're appropriate. That's something, John, you'll have to approve, and you can always talk to Catherine on that too. So, anybody else have anything for other business?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd just like to thank you and everyone that was involved in our Memorial Day service. It was really wonderful. We had beautiful weather. The singing, the talks, the prayers, everything was really a beautiful service on Memorial Day. And then everyone that was involved in the parade, it was very insightful. I really thought it was very, very good parade after the services that we had here, but it was a very good day. So anyone that missed it, got to get here next year.
I know, we want as many people, it's so hard. I know I've had residents, administration, a lot of people say, Mayor, the problem is the 8:30, but with that said, we are invited to the Bedford memorial service, and I think council feels the same way. It's important that we attend and represent that, since that's part of all four communities with a long history of tradition, and it's a very nice service also. So I even had some family members say it's too early, so I'm sure we've all heard that, so gonna just keep pushing everybody to get out, because I think we do. It's funny, because some of the other communities go to the Bedford memorial service, but don't have their own like ours, and when we tell them we have our own, it's kind of special too, because it gives our residents who maybe aren't capable, or the times don't work, to have another option in coming to ours, and I agree with you. I think the combination from just the rec and family life put it together, along with the speaker, along with the police, along with the service department, Pastor Eric from Dunham Church of Christ with right in our community, Rainey Austin singing our taps from the Bedford School. It just really,
Very nice.
we have the best small memorial service out there. We'd match it with anybody. We might not have that big one, but we have the best small one. We really get everything in, I feel, and it's, when you're done, we had a great speaker again, Marty Stemple, and I think every time we have somebody, it gives you little goosebumps of why we're here on Memorial Day, because people gave that ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives for us to even debate here at this dais with each other. Some countries can't even do that. They're on a camera like that everywhere they go. We're on just a camera where we can still say what we want. Anybody else have anything for other business? If not, we'll be here a week from today. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Can we vote on that motion?
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes?
Councilwoman Kanzoni?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Councilman Whedon?
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 8:08 p.m. Thank you, everybody.